Hi, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Books and Beaches. So, in honor of Valentine's Day, I thought it would be fun to pick some of my favorite romancy slash books with a theme of love in them to talk about. While I may not be a huge romance reader, I can appreciate a good book that has a love story in it, or that makes me cry, or just has, a really sweet, good, heartfelt feeling to it. So I threw on my pink today and I thought this would be just a perfect opportunity. Now, though I may not celebrate Valentine's Day, I just thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about some of my favorite books in this genre. So I have got a list here. I have some of them in physical form and then some of them I'll just pop up a picture. And I went back through the years. So I tried to go some are recent, and one of them is a book that I read a really long time ago, but it just sticks out into my mind as a book that I remember really liking, even though I may not remember a lot of details about it. So let's go ahead and get started. So the very first one, I don't have this one with me, but this was Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. I read this one, I believe sometime last year, and this one just gave me all the beachy vibes, which for me, that's like love language 101. But it was basically a tale of, and it says here, it's the magic of first love and everything somebody wants in a summer romance. And you're basically getting like a second chance romance too in it. So, and if I remember right, yeah, it's taking place on Long Island. So I'm not going to say, too much about these, but just giving you a glimpse at some of my favorite romancy genre books. So there's that one. Next up on the list would be basically anything by Abby Jimenez, but the one I chose to feature today is her more recent published one, even though I know she's got one coming out in the month of April, and that is Yours Truly. This one features two different doctors that basically have to fake date in order to persuade their families for a couple of different reasons, but there's some great anxiety representation in this one. They do some letter writing, which is quite adorable, but there's a lot of other issues that they kind of tackle in here as well, and so I really liked it. But basically anything by Abby Jimenez I've really enjoyed, especially, I'm looking over here, I think the first two were The Friend Zone and the Happily Ever After playlist. Those two were really good as well. So I would say anything by Abby Jimenez. All right, pulling up my list. Now this one, and when I first talked about it, this one was pretty controversial as well. And this one I wouldn't necessarily, I'm recommending because of the couple in this book, but I think this one represents friend love really well, and that would be Happy Place by Emily Henry. Now, I loved this book, and I know that was a controversial opinion, but I love the friendship relationships in this book because they're tested, and I think they truly represent what it's like to have friendships in your mid to late 30s, where you don't always see each other all the time, and it is a struggle to get together, but when you truly do make time for each other, you can still have those good friendships. So I know not everybody liked this one because of the relationship that's in this one, but I would prefer to focus on the friendship love in this one, and that's what I enjoyed about it. So there's that one. I'm sorry, I think I just hit my tripod. Too much going on in here today. All right, after that, I have The Beach Trap, and that was by Allie Brady. And this is a book, I did not discover this author duo until last year, I believe, but I really ended up enjoying this book. We have two women, or I should say two best friends that get pulled apart by this major secret. And I believe they find out not only when they're younger, not only were they best friends, they met at this camp, well, they end up being half sisters, and they had no idea until like they get picked up at camp this one night. And it was kind of like the secret relationship kind of thing. And when their father passes away, he leaves them this beach house, and they both like attempt to fix it up one summer, and there are relationships involved. And I liked both the relationship between the two women and the relationship between the men that they're involved with. And so it was just like a good lighthearted beach read. So it was one I would definitely recommend somebody pick up. One by probably what some would consider like the queen of chick lit, or many, I guess I would. And that is Ellen Hildebrand. Now, this is the Winter in Paradise series. I have read, this is the trilogy, and I have read all three, and I really like these ones. And sorry, my light is just kind of gonna wash this out. But this book, slightly romance, a little bit like mystery to it. But we have a woman who comes to find out that her husband has had a whole separate life. I believe they were down in St. John, so in the Caribbean, and you get a lot of different perspectives from a lot of different characters, but there are different relationships going on in here, and throughout the trilogy you see a lot of different friendships and relationships form, and I just loved all of the different connections that we get in this book, both relationships and friendships. So it's a trilogy I would highly suggest you pick up, and you're gonna fly through it. They're just super easy reads, and I really enjoy them. So there's that. And let's see here. All right. After that, one that I am sure you probably have heard about because it was probably all over the YouTube scene the last couple years, and that is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. Now, this book I believe gets compared to another book that's going to be on my list, and I read them far enough apart that I can't compare them, but this is kind of we have two characters that know each other and basically are seeing each other when they're younger, and then come back together at an older time in their lives, and not necessarily are reconnecting their relationship, but just they come back together at some point and see each other. But once again, like summer, lake vibes. I mean, this has Amber screaming all over it. So I really enjoyed this read. I actually ended up making my coworkers do this one for a book club. So if you can tell what kind of things I gravitate towards in this genre, yeah, this is definitely going to be it. So, all right, after that, I have one that actually I think surprised a lot of people because one of the very first BookTube Besties retreats that I joined, this was my book suggestion, and everyone was shocked because it wasn't a thriller. But this was a book I believe I had off of NetGalley, and I loved this book because I think it would basically be considered like a chick lit or a romance book, but this had one of the strongest written female characters because she didn't follow the typical tropes of a female romance character. And this is Bad Luck Bridesmaid by Allison Rose Greenberg. And she just is this like super independent, you know, not willing to change who she is for a man kind of person. And so for this video, you know, kind of thinking about the whole love idea, this one just gives me all the feels of like self-love. Like she was not willing to change herself for a man, and that is what I loved about this book so much. And not that there aren't relationships involved in this book, because there were, but I just loved that she loved herself so much that she wasn't willing to make those changes. So that is why this one is on the list for sure. All right, after that, we have another book that might be kind of shocking, but this one is The Gunkle. And I decided to put this one on the list because When I think about love in this book, I think about the love that this uncle has for his niece and his nephew. So it's not love in the sense of a relationship like we consider the relationship between two people who are dating, but I consider this one like the love that you have for your family. And so the fact that he steps up to help take care of his niece and nephew in the time of need that his brother has is just such a special story. And it's funny and it's cute. And it was just definitely a touching story. So I wanted to include it here because it's just something different and unexpected in, a video kind of based on love. So I wanted to include that one. All right. One that this author's name would definitely be missing if I didn't include it on this list, and that of course would be Colleen Hoover. Now, I do have a copy of this book, but I am pretty sure I have it loaned out to someone. I didn't check my list. But the first one I wanted to mention was Reminders of Him. This one definitely made me tear up, if I do recall, but it is based on a troubled young mother. I'm just kind of looking at the review because it's been a while since I've read this one, who yearns for a shot of redemption. And I believe she's attempting to get her daughter back after being in prison. So, and I want to say her daughter lives with either her parents, I believe she lives with her grandparents, but I can't remember on which side of the family. So it just was this very strong, compelling story. So definitely one from Colleen Hoover that I would mention. And then the other one from Colleen Hoover that I always must mention, because this is another favorite of mine, is November 9. I love this book. I love this book so much that I have 2 copies of it because I needed to buy this cover because I loved this cover more than the original cover. And in this one, we have 2 people who meet on November 9th and basically make a pact to meet every year on November 9th. And their story just develops from there. And I don't want to give too much away from there, but I just remember loving this book. I read this book years ago. I couldn't even tell you how long ago. And I just still remember loving this book. So good. So, like I said, this list without Colleen Hoover on it would probably be surprising. So anyway, another author that I think this list would be surprising without, especially for younger me, would be Nicholas Sparks. I was an avid Nicholas Sparks reader, dare I say, in my youth. For sure in my late teens and early 20s, I collected Nicholas Sparks books. I still collect Nicholas Sparks books. I do have all of them. Although as I've aged, his books become a little bit more predictable and a little less effective. But this is the book that kind of proved that he still got it to me, and that was The Wish. This one kind of defied the typical trope that he was stuck in for so long, and then he kind of went right back into it. But this book was about a woman who was sent away to have a baby because she was having a baby out of wedlock. They didn't want anybody to know about it. And she meets this boy, and she develops this relationship with the boy, and it just, beautiful story. And you're also getting, a current timeline. She lives in New York, but, she has a terminal medical diagnosis. And this book hit me in all the feels. And I think some said it was predictable. I didn't think so. And I absolutely loved it. So, like I said, was a huge Nicholas Sparks fan, and that one kind of renewed my faith in Nicholas Sparks again. So there's that. All right, moving on. Another one that probably seems a little bit weird to have on this list, but once again, thinking about the theme of love, it can be many different things, and I just love this book. This is The Art of Racing in the Rain. And This book, I tell you, I have begged my cousin to read this book so many times, and she just won't do it. But this book is basically about the love that a dog has for its person, and it is told through like the stages of life that a dog goes through, and it'll hit you in the feels. It's so much. And this said, a quote back on here, it says, "This old soul of a dog has so much to teach us about being human." It's a dog who speaks. It's about competitive racing. It's a heart-tugging storyline. It's just, yeah, it's everything. So I know it's a different one to put on here, but it fits the theme just so perfectly. All right, just a couple more. Obviously, I kind of alluded to this one earlier, but probably my favorite Christina Lauren is Love in Other Words. Once again, I love this book so much. I have 2 different copies of it because my cousin was so kind to have bought me this cover, and I have the other cover. This is one that I say everybody needs an Elliot in their life, because this is another example of 2 people who knew each other when they were younger and then connect again for like a second chance when they're older, and lots of I don't want to say twists and turns because it's not a thriller by any means, but there's definitely some twists to this book that I didn't expect, and just a fabulous read. So there's that one. And clearly, I've been talking too much. I've got to take sips of water. All right, another one that should come as no surprise, and this is Taylor Jenkins Reid's One True Loves. I remember reading this one and going, what would I do? This is a woman who finds out that her husband's helicopter has gone down and they presume that he is dead. She grieves, recovers, meets a new man, gets engaged, has moved on with her life, and then finds out her husband is still alive. And so it begs to ask the question, what would you do? So, just a very, very gripping book, and I love Taylor Jenkins Reid, so yeah, just all I need to say on that one. All right, couple more. Like I said, I was trying to just think of some of the ones that I've read in years past. Some of them are deep, some of them are light and fluffy. This one is more along the lines of light and fluffy. I mean, this cover screams Amber at Books and Beaches. This is Island Affair by Priscilla Olveris. This is basically like a fake dating scenario. We have a social media influencer who, I believe, either her boyfriend dumps her right before she goes to Florida for a family vacation, or like he just doesn't show up. And so she meets this local firefighter and he says like, yeah, sure, I'll be your pretend boyfriend for vacation. And the whole story goes from there. And I just loved it. It's just one of those like really fast, easy, like romantic-y reads, and it was great. So there's that. There's the ever popular recommend, and this one of course has a video or a movie that goes along with it, and that is the Me Before You trilogy by Jojo Moyes. I loved this book. I loved the movie as well. Basically, we have a woman that gets hired to be a caretaker for a man that is quadriplegic, and they create a bond, and that bond gets built over a lot of struggles and different things that happen, and the story goes from there. And I just remember, I read this trilogy several years ago, but I remember just absolutely loving it. So there's that one. And then one of the books that this is a book that I think you have to listen to the audiobook because it is just so fabulous on audio. And then I actually love the movie as well, but the movie and the book differ. And that is Crazy Rich Asians. This, talk about a wild family to be a part of, and a relationship that can withstand a lot of crazy things. So, love beating the odds. That would for sure be this book in a nutshell. Like, love this book. And like I said, I love this movie too. I almost wish I didn't have the movie cover for the book, but you know, that's a whole other video idea. So, and then the very final book is a book that I read a long time ago. But as I was going through my Goodreads, and I was really trying to dig back a little bit, this book came out in 2002. But this was Suzannes Diary for Nicholas. And this book came to my mind as I was trying to think of, you know, books to put on here. And I thought I owned it. I can't seem to find my copy. But this book is quoted to be a powerful, moving novel of love, loss, hope, and family. So we have a woman who thinks she has found the perfect man. You know, he does everything that she's imagined she wanted in a partner. But suddenly he disappears. She does not know where he's gone, but he's only left behind this diary. And it is a diary written by a woman named Suzanne for her son. And she, you know, kind of makes these connections that she thinks the woman that wrote this, the man that is the father, you know, was the guy that just left her. And so she's just trying to understand like why all this is happening. And I just remember reading this book and absolutely loving it. Now, granted, this was also in my Nicholas Sparks era, so maybe I would feel different, but this was the kind of James Patterson book that I loved back in the day as well. So those are all of the books that I kind of scoured my Goodreads that I could think of that when I think of romancy books or books about love that I'm interested in, these would be the books that I choose. So what would be some books that you would choose? Are there books along these lines that you would recommend to me? If you are watching this the day that it comes out, I hope you all have a very happy Valentine's Day. As always, if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.